Movement and jumping. So this looks a little bit different to the last video you would have seen. I've got a yellow capsule now instead of a red one. I don't have the terrain set up either. I've just got the ground on there. And you might have noticed for this version, Unity is a little bit different, but bear with me, everything basically works exactly the same, apart from the fact that it's slightly in different places. So I've got my player, I've got my ground, I've got the camera, which is kind of facing that direction. So we'll need to kind of look at my camera and maybe change it so it is actually seeing my player. You can see there in the main camera it's doing there. I think I'll have to rotate it around a little bit so I'm kind of in the middle of the screen. Okay, so it's in the position I kind of want it to be, so the player's in the middle there. Now, movement-wise, I've minimized all these bits on the side here. The only thing which we would have taken from the last video was to make sure on the rigid body for the player, that you've got the freeze rotation X, Y, and Z. Basically means it doesn't fall over as it starts to move or bumps into anything, that's all. But sometimes that can look pretty cool if it does. Now, what we're going to do, so this is the first bit of scripting you're going to need to do. We are going to add a script to our player. So like I said, the player is selected. I've got player named up there so we can see it is. I'm going to add a component, and you can kind of type in things to find things here. I could just click on new script, but in fact, I'm just going to type in the name I want to give my script, and it gives me this option as new script. And if I hit that, yes, I want to call it movement, create an ad, and then you'll see that this appears here. Now, within the code then, if I just click on this so you can see what's going on, this is the code which is generated for this, but we can't actually edit it here at all. So what we'll need to do is double click on movement. That will open up Visual Studio, and it will give us the code any second soon, so then we can actually start editing them. I'm actually going to change the view on it so it is 150, so it's a lot easier for you to see on screen then. So that's the zoom and facility down there. Now, a lot of this stuff we're actually not going to need. In fact, I'm actually going to delete all this stuff here. Now, you probably won't be doing that in yours, and you'll see why in a minute. And I definitely don't need those top two lines in this case. But I'm actually going to copy and paste and be a bit cheat a little bit. I'm going to copy and paste this code across, and I'm going to paste it in. So literally you don't have to watch me in a video typing out the code. And I'll paste it in today, and you'll notice for this void start I removed a second ago, but yours will actually have this here. But just make sure that this code goes in between these two brackets. It's quite important to make sure you've done that. Now, I'm going to press Control S, and you can see this goes green to say it's saved. I'm going to click back on Unity to allow it to do its kind of update. And as it's doing this update, I'll quickly just explain what this is. So we're setting a variable for speed. We're also setting a variable for the rigid body. So remember, we've got the rigid body actually on here. So on the player, that is. So we'll recognize that we've got a rigid body set up on it. That speed, you can see, is set to 0 because on the code, I haven't actually set it to anything. And this has been generated now since we've added that code. So I'm just going to type in a 5 in there. Just before we actually press play to see if it works, this next bit down here, so the start is basically to say that, well, what is this rigid body? And it's the rigid body of the player which the script is attached to, because it's actually attached to it there. And then this bit on here is basically to say, if I press left or right, so I've actually kind of typed in this bit myself in a previous example, it will move us horizontally. If I press up and down, it will move us in a vertical position. So it's going to make us go forward and back. And this line here is basically just saying that we are going to move in a direction and we're going to go by a certain speed. And that's that 5 I just typed in. Now, it doesn't have to be 5. That's just an example I've typed in. And to be honest, I don't know how this is going to work. So in terms of how fast I'm going to move. So if I press play and I press forward, on my cursor key, I move forward. If I press back, if I press left, if I press right, then it works. And I can hold them. So I'm holding left and up, down at the same time, so I can move in those areas there. But the issue is, well, one of the issues is when I go off the side, I fall off and I can't get myself back. But the camera isn't following the player at all. So the camera, which I positioned here so I could see the player, all I need to do is just left click on it and drag it down and drop around the player. And this time when I press play, it will follow me in whichever direction I go. But one of the issues is at this point, I can't jump. And the second thing is the camera isn't moving at all, but I think that might be another video we'll have to do. But I just want to point out with the player, if I click on the player and see here, we've got position X, position Y. As I am actually moving on the game, you can kind of see these things moving as well to kind of give you an understanding of what this is doing and basically how it's connected up together. So that's the first bit. That's how you get it to move. Right, so jumping wise, I've got another little bit of code, which is down here on this Word document, my Magic Word document. And see these yellow bits? I'm basically just going to add these bits in to the code. So I'm going to add in that one up here. It doesn't have to be in the middle of these. It could be anywhere in amongst these three. It could be in the front, on the end. It doesn't matter the order you do them in. That was just me trying to kind of keep it on there. Now, on the code you've originally typed in for the movement, that needs to change so it's just update, because otherwise the jumping bit doesn't work very well. And the next bit is just these few lines here. So this is basically an if statement to say, and I'll show you actually when we're in the code itself. So it's underneath this line. So if I get to the end of this line, I'm just annoying myself now by doing it this way. Let's get over there and press enter. And again, it doesn't have to be a space, it's just so I can kind of show you it. But if I press the space bar, it's going to make me go up. And that jump force, which we typed up there, we can choose how high we're going to be jumping. So again, if I press Control S to save this, go back onto here, let it do what it's going to do. Now jump speed should appear over here, or jump force should appear here. And if I set that to 5 as well, and I can change that as I'm going along. Now, as I can move left and right, if I press space, I jump up, and you can see by the shadow I'm jumping up as well. Now, while you're in the live game, if you kind of think, oh, I don't want to jump that high, you can actually just change it here and then press space again and think, actually, that's better. I only want to jump a little bit. Or if you want to jump a lot higher, you basically press enter there, click back on the game. That's more like it. I want to jump more like a Mario character. But the thing is, because in the game you can test it, when you press play, it goes back to its default number. So once you kind of think, oh, right, yeah, 10 was perfect, then you make sure you change it there. Otherwise, because it basically doesn't save it during playtime. Now, the problem is, with the jumping, which you'll probably find as well, when I jump and I keep pressing jump, I'm basically flying at this point, and I'm kind of going off. I'm falling back slowly, as you can see here. The Y is coming back down to 0. But I want it to work like in reality. When you jump off something, you have to land back on it to be able to jump again. So one thing we're going to do again on the code, just a little bit extra to add on to it. So this is the fixing of the jumping. We're going to add another bit of code into. I'm just really conscious how long this is taking to do. So forgive me if I'm rushing a little bit. So again, we're adding that to those variables we've got set at the top there. And we're going to put that line in the start part. So this is basically to say when the game starts, we are grounded. It's a true or false thing, this bool at the top here. So when the game is started and we're already standing on the floor, grounded means true. So we're actually on the floor, so we're able to jump. I was going to say dance then, but that's definitely not right. And then just need to add in a couple of little bits here as well. So and grounded. So on this bit, we've got the if statement saying if I press the space bar and I'm on the ground, I should be able to jump. And then the last couple of bits to put on, I just need to add that there as well. So this is saying now when I've actually jumped, I'm no longer grounded, so it's false. And then the last bit on the end is this little bit of code, which is saying that you can only jump when you're actually on something called ground. And I'll explain what that is now in a second. So this is going to come underneath this bit, and I'm going to press save. So this bit is on collision enter. So when I'm actually in contact with something called ground, grounded will be set to true, and I should be able to jump. So if I'm in the air, it'll be false, as it says here, and I won't be able to jump again. Now, if I go back onto Unity, the only thing is modified product not valid for this item. So it's going to see what that error message is. So on line 28, doesn't like private void. I think, you know what, I'm being daft. So I'm hoping you haven't copied it out. It actually needs to go after the in between these two last brackets here. So I was actually trying to put something, because there's already a void update there, and I was trying to put this into it. So now it's separate. It's in a, so that's the bracket to say that this procedure's finished. This is a procedure after it. Just for tidiness, I'm just going to enter it down there. And we shouldn't have that error message this time. Right, so the only thing is now when I press play and I press jump, we're going to assume that it knows that that's the ground, but I actually need to tag the ground. So if I click on it here, and you can see I've already got a tag selected to this. I forgot to change it earlier. But to get a tag, because you won't have ground here, you'll have all these other ones set up. You go to add tag, you press the plus sign, you type in ground and you press save. And then when you click back on the ground, because it won't actually automatically put on there, from the drop down menu, make sure it says ground there. So this time when I press play and I jump, and I'm pressing spacebar as many times as I can when it's in the air, it doesn't actually allow me to jump until I hit the ground again. Now, the issue is at this stage, I'm trying to move right so I can look around, but that's not happening. So in our next video, we'll talk about how we can control the camera with the cursor to be able to look around as we're moving about or even when we're stationary like this.